Let's talk about the uncomfortable truth about what it really takes to become a self-taught programmer. None of that sugar-coated crap, right? And I know you heard a lot of cool stuff maybe about somebody landing their job, they're making 6 figures, they didn't have to go to a boot camp and pay 20K, they have that self-taught programmer title, which is amazing. But let's get to the truth of what it really is, because I know a lot of you have some expectations that need to be tampered down just a little bit. Let's talk about what it actually looks like to be a self-taught programmer, right? So, you know, when you watch TV and there's a pharmaceuticals commercial for some drug that's going to cure cancer or something like that, you notice how when they're mentioning the side effects, which are like internal bleeding, diarrhea for the rest of your life, like bleeding out your eyeballs, you'll notice that things are very pleasant and there's like people playing in a park and there's just all this good stuff going on. The reason they do that is because they want to deliver some bad news. They want you to see like good images of people having fun and smiling, right? Same with like when you watch a beer commercial, right? And all these people are drinking something that's really unhealthy for them, that's actually not good for them, that's probably gonna, make them die faster. And everyone's smiling and having fun. This is amazing, right? Like the same thing I feel like happens when you guys hear about learning to code, because you're like, there's all this like cornucopia of fun, right? Like learning is so much fun. Like going back to school for a lot of us is fun in our later years because we're doing it voluntarily. And so we're like, we're just gonna go learn something. We're gonna get a job. It's like all smiles, right? Like it's amazing. It's so much fun. But the dark side is the truth, like the side effects, right? It's not what people really want to hear. The side effects of learning to code usually involve a lot of negative things, like most of your days are going to be spent like sort of in a frustrated feeling, like you're not making any progress. Most of your time actually spent like building some of the projects are going to feel like you're completely lost, you're overwhelmed. A lot of the time, even just as you're learning as a long-term thing, you're just going to have doubts that are going to come into play. You're going to be like, am I really doing this right? Am I moving in the right direction? Am I even cut out for this? Am I the biggest imposter ever? And that's what people don't really talk about. It's really freaking hard to get through a lot of that. Like that's really what I see with a lot of my clients. I see with you guys comment all the time on my channel here. I see it from you guys that most of life is not this glorious thing where you're dancing through a field of flowers and it's just like amazing. I'm learning to code. It's a grind, because this is a skill that requires you to just attack it directly head on. Whatever you don't know, you have to go into deeper. And that often requires hours, days, sometimes weeks spent in this area where you're like, you just don't really know what you're doing. Now, the good news is, and this is to me like the best news, is by learning this, by going through the hard or difficult way that this needs to be done, is that you'll get better at learning. You'll develop a lot more grit, you'll develop a lot more persistence, and the best part, in my opinion, is that you'll really develop a true sense of when you've accomplished something, right? Because as you're going and you're learning to code, victories are so hard fought. Like just learning something simple in maybe like JavaScript, right? Like learning how asynchronous programming and promises work. This is something I see a lot of my clients work on, by the way. When they finally get it, it's like the most amazing feeling for them because they've put in so much effort. It didn't really come to fruition at first. They didn't really have a moment where everything clicked, but later on it does, and that's a big victory for them. So it's really hard. I mean, I can say that till I'm blue in the face here, but what a lot of people don't realize is that this is what it really is. Just buying a few tutorials and feeling like everything's great is not really the true learning works. The true learning actually happens later on when you get knee deep into your own stuff, you're building projects, and you feel like you're not going anywhere and you're the biggest imposter. From there, the next thing that's important to understand, the real truth about being a self-taught programmer, is there is no feedback, okay? So when you're learning this on your own, you are just you by yourself. There's nobody else that's going to tell you whether you did a good job, whether you are on the right path. And that's something to become very comfortable with. Like most of us come from a position, in our jobs at least, where there's somebody else who's dictating the standards. They're telling you how to do something. They're telling you what is a job well done. And usually, if they're a good manager, right, they're complimenting you on a frequent basis. There's none of that when you're learning to code on your own. Most of this feels extremely foreign to us who are not used to setting our own standards. You essentially become your own manager every day. That's why I've used the term self-management. Like if you want to be a good software developer, you have to be a good self-manager, because you have to figure out what you need to be doing. You have to give yourself sort of a pat on the back when you're giving yourself, or when you've done a job well done. You're the one who has to figure out whether you're going in the wrong direction and change things up. This is really hard because most of us let other people do it. We're so used to our managers, our bosses, people, I mean, it can even be our spouse, like it can even be our friends giving us expectations. To take that back is very uncomfortable because we don't trust ourselves most of the time. But you have to learn to trust yourself. You have to learn to do research, create a plan. If that plan doesn't feel like it's going the right direction, change the plan, maybe hire a mentor. Maybe that could be somebody who's online who you pay a few bucks. I have a mentorship program. Maybe it means signing up for a boot camp or a school. But my point is that being a self-taught programmer is about being your own boss in that regard. And that's not easy for most of us. It doesn't come naturally for a lot of us because of what I said before, being in a regular job. So sort of keep that in mind. That's one thing that makes it really hard as well. Now, up until this point in the video, you probably get that I'm saying that learning to code is hard. It is really hard, but you know what will make it a lot easier? If you just go down below, see that little red button that says subscribe, smash the crap out of that thing so you can get notifications anytime I put out a new video and hopefully learn to code faster. Now, the next thing that I'm gonna bring up here is gonna sound very harsh on its face, but please hear me out in my full explanation of it because I think it will make sense and we'll kind of bring it full circle here. And that is basically that no one's gonna help you on your journey. Or really, it's probably better to say no one's going to save you. No one's gonna do the work for you. So what I mean by that is when you are at this, and I've done this by the way, so I know what it's like when you're trying to learn, callback functions in JavaScript and it's just not making sense and it's been days, you've been rereading the sections in the book about it, or you're building a project and just nothing seems to be working, right? What's gonna happen is you're gonna look for help from other people and hopefully people help you. If it does, great. Sometimes all the help you have is a, course you bought on Udemy, or it's a book that you're reading, which is great help. It's better than nothing. Or maybe it's one person who answers your emails once a week on a forum or something like that, right? That's help. But at the end of the day, that can't replace the work that you have to do to figure out whatever it is you need to figure out, right? So that concept that you're having trouble understanding in JavaScript, well, guess what? You just got to keep attacking it, right? You are probably thinking to yourself like, well, shouldn't somebody have like a good learning resource on it? Shouldn't somebody like have a really good tutorial? Like if I wrote a tutorial on it, it would be perfect and blah. Like just drop all of that from your mindset, right? Like people absolutely can help you. They may help you. There even might be some great communities out there that are going to have a few people in there who are going to step out and try to help you, but ultimately they can't change what's up here. Because in order for you to understand JavaScript better, to build this project out, things have to change up here, and that only comes from you. And you want to know the crazy part about all this? If people even want to help you, right? So if you go to some forum and they give away the answers and they sort of just tell you what to write, you will not get better. You will not be the type of developer who can actually land that first job. So it's sort of the irony here is that people can help you along your journey, and anyone who helps you, like definitely appreciate what they're giving you, but ultimately it's always on you to do the work, to go through the pain, the suffering that it sometimes takes to learn this, and you'll be much better off. Now, with all of that honest advice out there, hopefully you don't hate me. I will also mention too that I have a mentorship program that if you're interested in joining, I will leave a link in the description below of how you can do that. It just requires an intake call with me where I basically assess kind of where you're at. I just basically want to know what your goals are, where you're currently struggling with things. And if mentorship's a great fit, great, we can talk about it. But other than that, make sure to check that out below. I'll leave that in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out, everybody.